Have you ever wondered how humanity could ever justify the inhumane act of owning another human being? Picture a time when this unthinkable act was commonplace, especially within the vast territories of the British Empire. Slavery, an institution so deeply woven into the fabric of society that it seemed an unchangeable status quo. In this era, human beings were treated as property, bought and sold like commodities. Their lives, their hopes, their dreams were all subject to the whims of their owners. This was a reality for countless souls, a reality that today we struggle to comprehend. Yet the winds of change were about to blow. The British Empire, a major player in this grim trade, was on the brink of a monumental shift. The year was 1833, a year that would forever change the course of history. But how did such a deeply entrenched system come to an end? Let's delve into it. The seeds for abolition were sown much before it actually happened. In the late 17th century, a humble religious group known as the Quakers, also referred to as the Society of Friends, started to question the morality of slavery. Their belief in the inherent equality of all human beings put them at odds with the prevailing acceptance of the institution of slavery. The Quakers' rejection of slavery was a spark that would eventually ignite a nationwide movement. By the mid-18th century, individual Quakers were voicing their opposition to slavery, using their influence to sway public opinion. In Britain, the Quakers were the first organized group to formally protest against the slave trade. They were steadfast in their belief that every individual, regardless of color or creed, should be treated with dignity and respect. However, the Quakers were not alone in their fight. They were soon joined by a group of like-minded individuals from different walks of life. In the year 1787, the Committee for the Abolition of the Slave Trade was formed. This group was a potent mix of Quakers and Anglicans, united by their shared opposition to slavery. The committee embarked on a mission to end the slave trade. They gathered evidence, launched petitions, and used the power of the written word to spread their message. Their tireless efforts gradually began to shift public opinion. The movement was gaining momentum and the issue of slavery was becoming a topic of heated debate in the public sphere. The committee's members, including prominent figures like Thomas Clarkson and William Wilberforce, played a crucial role in this fight. Their passionate advocacy and unyielding determination were instrumental in pushing the anti-slavery agenda forward. The early seeds of abolition had been sown. These seeds, nurtured by the tireless efforts of abolitionists, would eventually grow into a powerful force that could no longer be ignored. Slowly but surely the wheels of change were set in motion. Change is never easy, and in the British Parliament the fight against slavery was no exception. This institution, a symbol of power and authority, was the battleground where the war against slavery was fought, where the voices of the oppressed found an echo, and where history was written. At the heart of this fight was the British Parliament, a hub of debate and decision-making. Yet it was not the institution itself, but the people within it that drove the fight against slavery. These were men and women of courage, conviction, and a deep sense of justice. One such figure was William Wilberforce, a man whose name has become synonymous with the abolitionist movement. Wilberforce, a member of the British Parliament, was a tireless advocate for the abolition of slavery. His passion and perseverance were instrumental in steering the conversation towards abolition. He introduced his first bill against the slave trade in 1789, but it was met with fierce opposition. The economic interests of many members of Parliament were deeply intertwined with the slave trade, creating a formidable barrier to abolition. However, the spirit of abolition was not to be quenched. The voices of dissent grew louder, fueled by the atrocities of the slave trade that were becoming increasingly evident. The abolitionist movement gained momentum, and the Parliament was its epicenter. Wilberforce and his fellow abolitionists faced a daunting uphill battle. They navigated through years of intense debates, political maneuvering, and public campaigning. Their conviction was tested, but their resolve was unwavering. Every defeat was met with renewed vigor, every setback with an even stronger push for change. Their tireless efforts were finally rewarded in 1807 with the abolition of the slave trade, but the fight was far from over. The struggle moved from the abolition of the trade to the abolition of slavery itself. The fight against slavery was a long and strenuous one, but the British Parliament played a pivotal role in steering the course of history. And the echoes of this fight continue to resonate, reminding us that the path to justice, though long and fraught with challenges, is always worth the struggle. The year 1833 marked a significant milestone in the fight against slavery. Picture this: The British Empire, a global superpower, grappling with a moral dilemma that was as old as civilization itself: slavery. The empire, which had once profited enormously from the trade of human beings, was now leading the charge to end this reprehensible practice. The instrument of change? The Slavery Abolition Act of 1833. The Slavery Abolition Act was a remarkable piece of legislation. It was designed to bring about an end to slavery in the British Empire, and it was the culmination of years of tireless campaigning by abolitionists. But what did it actually say? In essence, the act outlawed the ownership, buying, and selling of slaves throughout the British Empire, including in its colonies. It was a sweeping, bold declaration that sent shockwaves around the world. But the act didn't just end slavery, it also established a compensation scheme. This was a controversial provision, as it meant that slave owners were compensated for their loss of property. In fact, the British government spent a whopping £20 million, a huge sum in those days, to pay off these claims. This act also established an apprenticeship system, designed to prepare former slaves for their new lives as free individuals. However, this system was often exploited, leading to conditions that were hardly better than slavery itself. This flaw in the act led to its amendment in 1838, ending the apprenticeship system and fully emancipating all slaves in the British Empire. The Slavery Abolition Act of 1833 was a monumental step in the right direction. It signaled the end of an era and marked the beginning of a new chapter in human rights. It also set a precedent for other nations, challenging them to follow suit and abolish slavery within their own borders. But let's not forget, the act was not a magic wand that instantly erased the horrors of slavery. It was a significant step, yes, but there was still much work to be done. With this act, slavery was officially abolished in the British Empire, but the fight against slavery was not yet over. The abolition of slavery was a significant step forward, but its aftermath and legacy are equally important. In the wake of the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833, the landscape of the British Empire underwent a profound change. The act not only emancipated slaves within the empire but also set in motion a relentless campaign against the global slave trade. The British Empire, once a stronghold of slavery, transformed into a leading force in the fight against this inhumane practice. In the years following the act, British naval squadrons patrolled the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, intercepting slave ships, liberating those held captive, and holding accountable those responsible. This active role of the British Empire was instrumental in dismantling the transatlantic slave trade, leading to the abolition of slavery in other regions of the world. Yet, the abolition of slavery was not an immediate panacea for the deep-seated issues stemming from centuries of oppression. The freed slaves grappled with socio-economic challenges as they strived to carve out a new existence in a society that had long viewed them as property, not people. It was a long and arduous journey towards equality, a journey that, in many ways, continues to this day. As we look at the legacy of the abolition, its impact on modern society is evident. It was a pivotal moment that served to underscore the inherent dignity and worth of every human being, regardless of race or origin. It laid the groundwork for the civil rights movements of the 20th century and the ongoing fight for equality and justice. The abolition of slavery also sparked a shift in global consciousness. It called into question the morality of exploiting fellow human beings for economic gain, prompting a re-evaluation of societal norms and values. It marked the beginning of a global movement towards universal human rights, a principle that remains at the heart of our modern society. While the abolition of slavery was a monumental achievement, it serves as a reminder of the constant fight against injustice in all its forms. So, what have we learned about the abolition of slavery in the British Empire? Our journey has taken us from the early seeds of abolition, where we witnessed the burgeoning anti-slavery movements that began to question and challenge this oppressive institution. We delved into the critical role of the British Parliament, the hub of transformational decisions, where voices of dissent grew louder and ultimately tipped the scales towards justice. We examined the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833, a monumental piece of legislation that formally ended slavery across the British Empire, marking a pivotal moment in human history. Finally, we explored the aftermath and the enduring legacy of abolition. The ripples of this monumental act continue to shape our world, influencing social, political, and human rights discourses. The abolition of slavery in the British Empire serves as a powerful reminder of humanity's capacity for change and progress.